Good morning, precious souls. Looking at fear and scarcity mindsets and your attachment to money and why your reality might be showing you things that are frustrating you right now. Join me in this episode as we dive deep into your money journey. I am no stranger to scarcity consciousness, like to scarcity and how it shows up in my reality, but it's different. Right? Because I guess for me, being an accountant and dealing with clients my whole career, I've had people coming to me in that financial pain, right? And in that financial struggle. And sometimes I have, like, if I look back at my accounting career when I was doing public practice, I was the person that people dreaded. I was the person that someone didn't like coming to. I was the person that was like, Abby, tell me how we can make it better. And I'll go, okay, all right, if you do this, do this, do this. So I always said, an accountant is an accountant, right? And what determines the difference between a good accountant and maybe a not so good accountant is their ability to ask questions. Now, you can take the same information to different accountants, and I guarantee you, you will get different results. And those results will be so dependent based on what questions are asked. So earlier on in my career, I got really comfortable with just asking questions. Like the more I knew about someone's, not just their business, but their life, their family, their goals, what they were hoping to achieve. I think I was a bit of an anomaly. I wasn't just ticking and flicking. I was building relationship and making a task that people hated with a passion somewhat pleasant. So then we fast forward to past my awakening, now spiritual accountant, and I carry those traits. I carry those traits across now, even though the work I do is very different nowadays, the relationship's the same. I can help people based on the level of questions that I ask. And, you know, the questions that I ask relate to your financial behavior. Because what I saw was time after time after time, year after year, people would come to me and they would complain. And then I would say, oh, XYZ, have you tried that? And they go, oh, great. Yeah. And they're like full of energy and they're like, yeah, that's really good. That's really awesome. And it's like, I even see that same behavior now around business metrics. Oh, that's really awesome. That's so great. And then when it actually comes to the crunch and to managing your finances, managing your money, people just like check out. They check out. Predominantly avoidance. But there's money management is a spectrum, right? And you can have avoidance on one end of the spectrum, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have like hyperactivity. It's like over analyzing your metrics. And it's not about what you do, it's about how you feel about what you do. So you could be on one end of the spectrum where you're in complete avoidance. You don't look at your numbers at all. However, that is empowering for you because you can be in divine trust and surrender. So you don't need to look at your numbers. And I created the business metrics based on the fact that people were in avoidance. avoidance around their figures. But just because you create a solution because people are in avoidance doesn't mean they're gonna take it. Because what's actually going on here is like this fear and scarcity loop. And it's like, um, the judgment around yourself of what you have or what you don't have. It's the conditioning around, what your parents taught you or didn't teach you, or, the things that they would say, which you then took on, right? Because, things get passed down through the generations. And then we can have like, a lot of people in money healing spaces talk about like poverty codes or poverty stories or poverty mentalities, or it's their um ancestry. Yeah, it's the ancestry of poverty. And look, I pose it to you like this. You can have two children in the same household with exactly the same parents, with exactly the same upbringing. And one child takes it and makes something of themselves, or one child takes it and embodies that mentality. But nothing different happened from child to child. At the end of the day, it all actually just comes down to choices. And the choices that we're making on a human level, and then the choices we're making on a soul level. Now, when we talk about choices, we're not going to go to the human level because at the end of the day, the human is making decisions based on the communication from the soul. And the communication from the soul is expressed through emotion. Right now, the soul is always speaking to you through those emotions. It doesn't matter if it's positive or it's negative, right? There is no such thing as positive and negative. There's just different frequencies, and those frequencies have a charge. So when you're in a lower end of the frequency, is a lower charge. You don't have much energy. When you're in higher end of the frequency, there's a higher charge. You're full of beans, right? So it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It just is. So what happens is the human get attached to the emotions and attached to the story and attached to all the things, right? And then they start going, oh, okay, well, I'm not making any money, or I'm broke, or I'm in fear scarcity because I've got money blocks to heal, because my parents didn't raise me right, because my past life as a draconian queen, I'm being punished, or because, there's all these rhymes and reasons as to why you're not making any money. And it's because you got fear, and it's because you're in trauma, it's because your ex-husband did this, or it's because your children are doing that. And it's because. And that is the poverty mentality. Because when you are broke, when you are in scarcity, and when you are broke and you have nothing, it is a representation of the nothing responsibility you are taking, the level of responsibility that you are taking. You are broke in your life because that is the same amount of responsibility you are taking in your life. If you were abundant in your life, you would be taking responsibility and accountability for the level of abundance in your life. So now you need to take the same level of responsibility and accountability for your brokenness, your lackness, your scarcityness. Now, this is a tough pill to swallow, because looking around in your life and going, well, I'm broke because of me. Ouch. But I did all the things. Like I did this course and I did this activation, and I've been mentoring the affirmations. And honestly, these affirmations do not work if you don't believe it to be true. And truth prevails. Truth always prevails. You can affirm yourself rich till the end of your days. If you don't believe it at your core, it ain't never going to happen. It ain't never gonna happen. Some people go, well, Abby, like, but how can I believe that I'm rich when everything in my reality is telling me otherwise? You know, I lost my job and then this happened and then I can't get a new one and I blah, blah, blah. Do you know, literally, I was down in Service Paradise, took the kids to the VR reality place, virtual reality. Oh man, it was so much fun, right? And the guy there was like, "Oh, you know, sorry, we're really short staffed today. No one wants to come in and work. You know, we've everyone's called in sick." And I even rang one person up, and you know, they said they couldn't come in and help me out because they were having breakfast. I'm sorry, but where the level of accountability in our society today has dropped dramatically. It's always someone else's fault. It's always some other reason. It's always some. Why do you think culture is so right now? So we have to start taking accountability and responsibility for our life. You are living the life that you have chosen. All of your choices, all of your decisions, all of your behaviors up until this moment were your choices. And as much as taking that accountability and responsibility is a tough pill to swallow, it's also the most empowering one because then you can make different choices. Because your reality is the sum total of all of the choices that you've made at the level of consciousness that you made those choices. So, someone who is in poverty, scarcity, and lack mentality is unconsciously or consciously making decisions to support that. Right? And the universe always responds. It responds to consciousness. It doesn't respond to your affirmations. It responds to who you are. And you are the currency, you are the frequency. Your reality around you is the mirror of your frequency, of your currency. So why do you think when people go through the journey of evolution, they lose a lot of friends? You know, friendship circles cease and things change and shift and evolve. They can evolve very rapidly. And then you go through this dark night of the soul because your human is attached to those relationships. And they're like, what does this mean? They're not my friend. And then we go this polar opposite direction of like, if you don't believe what I don't believe, we can't be friends. And then it's like, actually, what if you can be friends? What if you can have different beliefs but still be friends? Because that, you know, so we swing between all these different levels of consciousness in our response to our environment, to our relationships, and to our decisions and our choices. But I know, right? I know. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be broke. I know what it's like to worry, to fear, to be scared, to not know where my next meal was coming from, be afraid that I was going to lose the roof over my head. I know what it's like to fear being able to provide for my children. I know that the anxiety is real. It's in your body. It happens. And just because I have done the work and moved through different levels of consciousness and showed up doesn't mean that I'm just constantly vibrating high and positive, affirmative, uh, amazing emotions all the time. There are times where I drop into fear. There are times when I drop into scarcity. That doesn't change. It's how you respond to it that changes. Because universe, God, your soul, your higher self, it's always like it's the same as what I say in business. Test and measure, test and measure. Universe is the same. It's always just message received. Like test and measure, test and measure. You ain't always gonna get it right. Probably gonna fuck it up. I mean, hell, I fucked it up heaps, but I own it. You're going to mess it up and be completely unconscious that you messed it up, right? Or I'm not even going to say you messed it up. You just responded in a way that didn't evolve your level of consciousness, right? So you just stayed the same, right? You stayed the same. You did, you know, everyone says It's the same story showing up in a different meat suit. So if we keep replaying these programs, these patterns, and you're the source, you're like the antenna, the frequency that's tuned into that source. Like it's just responding to that. You want to tune out of that frequency and into a new one, you gotta act differently. You got to. So when we do it unconsciously, right? So unconsciously messing up. So let's talk about it from a perspective of finances, right? Financially fucking ourselves. Everybody is capable of doing that. Absolutely everybody. Now, when people are like, I've got to improve my finances, the first thing they default to is save money. So then what they do is they go, oh, well, we got to trim the fat. We got to cut the costs. And look, I feel like we live in a world of over-consumerism, and there's a lot of fat people could trim. And I mean, I was just chatting to a client the other day, and they were talking about how all of the nurses in the Botox industry are no longer able to take delivery or administer Botox anymore. And then I had a conversation at the exact same, well, within 24 hours with another client who is a energetic facelift specialist. And I was like, isn't it funny I'm having these two conversations within 24 hours of each other? I mean, I just love how life is working right now. It's just your perspective, right? And then I was thinking about it from a financial perspective, and I was like, what is the universe really saying here? And when I went into it, I was like, wow, women will spend hundreds of dollars on Botox to keep themselves looking young and fresh, yet they won't spend money on personal development. And I don't know if anyone else has seen this, like comment in the section below if this has happened to you, but through the amount of personal development that you do, your face changes. I know when I look at photos of like little abs, I call her little abs, but it's like lower level consciousness abs to now, I look younger now because I'm not carrying all the density in my face. I'm not carrying all of the unexpressed emotion, suppressed emotions. Like when you move through that, you get lighter. You actually, when you let it go and release it, you get lighter physically. And then your appearance changes physically. So, I mean, I don't judge anyone. If you want to go get Botox, go get Botox. But there's actually other ways of doing it. So if you want to trim the fat, right? Well, if you want to improve your finances, and we're in this scarcity loop and we're in this cycle of not enoughness, you've got to, it's not just about trimming the fat, it's actually looking at your money management. What are you doing? And it's not just how you spend money, but it's how you make money as well. So it's always pluses and minuses. It's not what you make, it's how you do it. It's not what you make, it's why you do it. What is the driving force for you? Now, when I look at people in the world, they are slaves to money, slaves to money. And when I look at people in the world, they are making decisions for money. You're missing the point. When you make a decision purely for money, this is where you're just going to, you're like, oh, yeah, but Abby, I can't go on a holiday because I have $20 in my bank account. I want to make that decision. Why can't I do that? Well, you can make the decision to go on a holiday, but then you've got to follow it through with the action. You just can't say, I'm making the decision, so I'm going to manifest $5,000 so I can go across to Fiji, right? You've then got to take the action that supports that. And why do you want to go to Fiji? What's there? What's that? You're communicating with God throughout all of these things. right? And even if you, I can go the opposite end of the spectrum, people who are in heaps of abundance and just frivolously spending, most likely spending to fill a void, or they're not spending at all and they're hoarding. I will tell you, money likes to move. Money loves to move. Money is like water. It's currency. It's got a current. It flows. The real current actually is you, the energy that flows through you. And the money in your bank account, that's just the physical representation of the byproduct of the value that you're putting out in the world. Now, the value that you put out in the world, it can be quantified in many different ways. You've got energetic value, you've got your relationship to time, relationship to others, you've got your products, your services. How you make money. Do you swap time for money? This is the slave system that a lot of people are trapped in, swapping time for money. That's why people don't want to show up and go to work because they'd rather sit at home and eat their breakfast instead of going to work and getting paid $20 an hour. Because the system and the employment system, it's a slave system. I've always believed employment is slavery ever since I got out of it myself. But hey, Abby, how else am I going to make money? And it's not necessarily that everybody has to have a business. Not everybody does. But I think there is definitely an evolution out of employment where you then become the ruler of your time. You then choose when you want to work and when you don't want to work. And this is where you become a freelancer, right? So this gives you more freedom. So the money in your bank account being the byproduct of the value that you put out in the world. And, a lot of people are swapping time for money, right? And then they go and, or a lot of people are putting a lot of effort out there, right? And all right, well, I'm going to move out of that and I'm going to create my own business so I can have time freedom and I can create financial freedom for myself. And I'm going to do all of these things and I'm going to make lots of money out of it because I'm healing, I'm on the journey and I have really good things, right? And then what happens is they move into that space. I see this a lot, and they've got a lot of, I guess, motivation that gets them there. They're motivated to start their own business or start a venture that moves them away from the scarcity, right, that they had before. And that motivation, it's an away from action, right? So when you're taking action that is moving away from something you fear, it is going to tell the universe to bring in what you fear to test you because universe doesn't want you taking motivated action. The universe wants you taking inspired action. Because then what happens is the motivation runs out. And when that motivation runs out, you run out of energy. And then when the bank account doesn't replicate the same amount of physical energy that you've been putting out in the world, we then start to think, well, I mustn't be valuable. If I'm not making the money, then I'm not valuable and I'm not doing the right thing, or I'm not providing enough, or I can't provide for myself. We create all these human stories around the money not showing up. And again, when money doesn't show up, so I've had this even myself. Well, let's even go one step further. Has there ever really been a time where money hasn't shown up for something that you have desperately needed? Has it really not been there? Or has it landed at the 11th hour? So this story of it not showing up and then it being attached to your worth The money in the bank account is absolutely no reflection of your worth. If it was, everyone would have infinite bank accounts because our worth is infinite and our attachment to money, being a representation of our worth is what gets us stuck. So when I'm looking at my bank accounts, it's a representation of the value that I put out in the world. So that's self-esteem. Okay, it's not self-worth. Two different things. Self-worth is how you feel about yourself. Self-esteem is what you bring to the world and that value in the world, right? So the bank account can affect your self-esteem if you are doing lots of things in your business and you don't see the byproduct of that. And then people transfer that to self-worth, right? But self-worth is how you love yourself, regardless of any other element in your life. So we kind of have to detach from the bank account. Oh, Abby, but I'm in poverty and scarcity and I'm in survival. So I need to be attached to that. Yes, you absolutely do, because you have to put a roof over your head. Hang on, Abby, but now what you're saying is that I've got to be not attached, but attached at the same time. How is that even possible? You've got to look at your attachment. Look at your attachment to money and dissolve them. Dissolve them being attached to you personally as a human. And so one of the things that I used when I was in survival, it was an affirmation, but it wasn't an affirmation of I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy. I love money and money loves me. I'm just like tricking myself, Rich. Are you kidding me? No, it was a deeper faith and trust in the universe, in the ever unfolding of like, oh my God, this is happening for me. It really fucking hurts and I'm in anxiety, but hey, this is happening for me. That's the first step. So I had this affirmation, and you can write it down if you want. God's wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. God's wealth. God's wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All of my needs and desires are met instantaneously. I am one with God. I forget the last bit. I don't need to say it. It's something along those lines. You probably heard it before, maybe not, but I had this written and I would just, and what that was doing when I was affirming that, it was instilling that deeper level of trust in the universe and in the unfolding of it. And that whatever experience I was experiencing, I wasn't rejecting, I was taking accountability for it. And I was also expressing my trust in the universe. And I knew that if I wanted a different outcome, I needed to do things differently. I needed to change my behavior with money. I needed to shift my perspectives, my attachments, my identities. And I guess I was lucky in that being an accountant, I was somewhat detached from money. But I promise you, when you get to that space of scarcity, you're attached. You're attached to every last cent in that bank account. But here I have a question. I met this beautiful woman. She's a client. She came to one of my immersions and she came to do some money work with me. And we moved through it. And I can tell you that on a physical monetary level, she is probably one of the most broke women that I've ever met. But on a spiritual, energetic, and life abundant way, she is the most wealthy person I've ever met because she sees not just money in the bank, but she sees the abundance around her in the way of like, she'll be walking through a park or something and come across some sort of fruit tree. And we're like, oh my God, fruit. And she'll pick some and she'll take it home and give it to her daughter and eat it. And like life always provides. Like, if you think about plants, if you think about the abundance of plants and how the multiplication of plants works naturally through nature, like Earth and Earth's natural resources are so abundant that the more we disconnect from our natural resource, the more we lose ourselves in the world of commercialism. So it doesn't mean you can't have, nice things, or you can't have, like, you can have whatever you want, but it's not, it's like what shifted, okay, in my own personal financial journey was like I made the money. I was abundant. But my attachment to money and my self-worth around money, so I would just frivolously spend. Ridiculous. Frivolously spend. If I had money, I'd spend it. Right? So I shifted and I mean I still would save, but I looked at my behaviors and then I looked at my values for money as well. What do I value in life? What is important to me? And what I value and what's important to me is different to you. It's different. We're all different expressions. So there comes a time where looking at your behaviors and looking at the result in your life because of those behaviors has to just become the most sobering exercise for you to courageously walk through. Because when you're assessing those behaviors, there's going to be a huge difference between spending money on things that you value and then spending money on things that are just filling the void. The thing with scarcity and poverty and choices and money and frequency and energy and emotion and moving through and changing those behavior and stepping through the vortex of transformation. Like it's so nuanced that over the years, like I've put out, wealth wisdom and I've put out, I've got business metrics and but I think that when it comes down to really shifting your frequencies, like really evolving and doing the work, like it's so customized because everyone is so unique and so individual. And it's like you have to move through it, right? I always say you can't go over it. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You can't go around it. You've just got to go through it. And none of it is right. None of it is wrong. When you get to, I mean, there is no arrival, but there's this element of just the collapsing of all stories and all timelines. When you realize that you're the creator, none of those matter, truly matter. They're just stories. They could be anybody's stories. They could be everybody's stories. And you are just a byproduct of the stories that you're telling yourself. And we got to stop telling stories. We got to stop, like, affirming the stories and meet the story, accept the story, love the story, learn from the story. Because rejecting it doesn't work. Because it's going to lay dormant. We have to actually process it, right? You have to move through it. And it just wants to be expressed. Your soul just wants its fullest expression in all of it. It's like when when you haven't moved through a story when it keeps showing up, when the same thing keeps showing up time and time and time. Now, you might have different levels of it. For me, money wasn't really the biggest story in my life. My biggest wound was around relationships, right? And healing. And I even see how that's correlated very deeply into worthiness, and money as well. However, a lot of people really do struggle with the scarcity mindsets. It's not a mindset. Your mind is just attached to the frequency of scarcity. And while you keep behaving in the action of scarcity, you're not going to shift that frequency. You're not going to move beyond it, up through the vortex of evolution. You've got to alchemize the transformation, right? This is what I talk about. Divine Wealth Code is the 7 steps of transformation. It is a process that you walk through. The first step is awareness. You've got to be aware of the story. Sometimes we're just running these patterns and programs and we don't even know it. And that's okay as well, right? That's okay as well. Not everyone has to be aware. Or some people even go, they're gonna be like hyper aware of every little action. It's like, chill out. Come on. We're human too. We just do things because we're human, right? Awareness and then understanding. So the understanding is, where did it come from? What does it mean? What is it saying about me? Who is it? What is it? What version? What reality? Go into all the things, but then don't stay there. Move out of that. You have to surrender. Awareness, understanding, surrender. Surrender to all of it. Surrender to what was, to what is, what will be. When you can fully let go and just go, you know what, life, just do your thing. Beautiful. Then we transmute, because once you fully surrender, you fully let go. You've let go of that attachment. You've surrendered. Now we shift. Transmutation is the shifting of the energy. It's the upgrade. It's the fun part. It's what we all love. We all love going to that height, that state, that higher state of consciousness, right? But then what happens? We drop. We come back. Our human comes in, right? So we go through that transmutate. We reach that higher state. Yeah, we got this. We can do it. We receive the download. Amazing. Okay, now, once we transmute, we need to educate. Because after transmutation, you need to learn new behavior. You need to educate yourself. You need to relearn new behavior. Oh, that's the messy part. That's the part where people get stuck because they don't want to relearn new behavior. They just want to keep doing what they've always done because it was comfortable and it's known. Right? You need to learn new behavior around this area of your life. Once we then learn that, you don't do it once and then magic, it's done. You got to do it multiple times. The universe will keep throwing, it'll keep responding to your consciousness. It's not tests, right? It's not tests. I used to think it was tests. The universe will test you, usually within 2 weeks. No, universe is responding to the level of consciousness. So when you reach a new level of consciousness, you relearn new behavior. Universe is going to respond to that at that new level. And are you going to embody that new behavior at that new level, or are you going to revert back? So that's the embodiment. Once you then embody that, I think, when I look at my transformation through relationships, man, it took me heaps of goes to figure it out. Heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of goes because my human just did not want to let go. It couldn't believe, it couldn't conceive what was actually possible. But then finally, when I kept learning new behavior and kept, like, even though it felt off and it felt wrong, and it was like, oh, really? Am I going to say something here? Or am I going to what? I'm going to shut down? Or am I just going to suppress? Am I going to what? Right? Then finally, blah. Oh, that came out a bit wrong. Okay. Maybe a little less raw next time. Okay. So we're consciously learning this new behavior and giving it a shot. You're not always going to get it right, but some keep going. And it's that devotion to the growth and the evolution that gets you there because it's not linear. And then you have to go back and there's new awarenesses and then more understanding and then more transmutation. But if you want the alchemy, you have to be devoted to doing it differently. We're all evolving, right? And we're all evolving at different paces. And then you can evolve and then move back and then move forward and then move back and then move forward and then move up. And it doesn't even matter. It's not like backwards and forwards and it's not right or wrong or up or high or low. It's just the response. So then there comes a time where that new behavior is a natural reflex. It's unconsciously implanted, new program, new way of being, new life, new reality. And then you look around and you go, holy, remember when I had all like that, like self-worth problem? Holy crap. Like, I don't even resonate with that anymore. How could I have even thought that? How could I even have, oh, and you just see how limiting it was for yourself. And that's because you're in a new resonance. You're in a new frequency. You're in a new code. You're in a new reality. You're in a new timeline. You've quantum jumped. You've like whatever you want to fucking call it, but you've just changed. Things are different now. And you look back, and then this is even where some people get stuck. And they're like, they kind of like reject that. I mean, there's a lot of people moving into religion right now, and they're rejecting all the spirituality that they had prior to that. I'm like, honey, that's what got you there. How can you reject that? That's what got you there. It's all perfect. It's all part of it. It's all your evolution. We came here to evolve as humans through the lived experience of expressing your humanness. So, what's
Maybe,
one thing that you could change today? It's your attachment to that response. Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Or is it excitement? Because I know in my body, anxiety and excitement feel the same. Could it be excitement? That anxiety, that tightness in your chest that you're like, you're just attaching fear to it. But what if that fear was actually excitement? Your soul is excited for what is about to happen. Because what is about to happen is actually beyond comprehension. Your limited little mind could not possibly conceive what the universe has planned for you. But your human wants to attach fear to it. So, what if we actually flip the script and go, well, this fear is actually excitement? What would your soul be excited about? What is it that your soul wants to express in that excitement? Something new coming? How will you know? Oh, I think you'll just know, right? We always know. The song always knows. So what if we could just go, oh, all right, allow the universe to provide for you. But yes, don't forget to take the action because, the universe is not going to just drop it in your lap. You're co-creating with universe. Allow the universe to provide for you. And in that provision, be non-attached. There is no expectation. It is going to show up in a way that your human mind probably won't understand it. But you have to be open for it and you have to be devoted to it. So when it does show up, you go, okay, now I have to take some action because I'm responding to the universe. I'm co-creating. I hope this has helped some people today. I love talking about this topic. It's so nuanced. Please don't attach to every word that I say as gospel. You know your own experience, you know your own things, and I'm just here as your guide, helping you align to the true wealth, the true currency, the truth of who you are, because you are the human resource. You are the most wealthiest resource on the planet because you have unlimited energy and you didn't know that. You just didn't realize that.